Amanda. Today we are talking about avoiding Humpty Dumpty's great fall. Does your book Conquer Your Mountains talk about nursery rhyme characters?
Welcome, Amanda. Yeah, the answer is no. There's no necessary rhymes in Conquer Your Mountains, but there's a lot of analogies that are similar to the story of Humpty Dumpty. Week 51 says, gazing down from the dizzy heights of a life well lived, it is easy to become complacent and take a misstep that could send you plunging all the way down, just like Humpty Dumpty.
So, how do you stay grounded and avoid complacency after reaching a significant milestone?
When you've reached a big milestone, often you think that your rate of learning can now slow down because you've now made it. But you mustn't be complacent because what you think is the end of that particular road might just be a bend in the road. And if you look around the corner, there's actually more road to travel. So it's about embracing the idea of continuous self-improvement, but also avoiding the temptation to take shortcuts or stop doing the things that made you to be that great person that you are in the first place.
Integrity is one area that the enemy can easily attack to make a leader fall. What habits help protect the leader's integrity over the long term?
Yeah, integrity is really a precious thing. It's like a glass jar or an egg. It's really precious when you have it, but if it does fall, just like Humpty Dumpty, it's very difficult to put it all together again in a way that other people will believe that you are a person of integrity. So the habits that you need to practice are really being always honest, transparent, and accountable in every situation that you face. If you start selecting in which areas you'll be honest or transparent, you are now chipping away at that precious glass jar, and one day you could drop it. So just being consistent is the biggest daily habit.
How do you recognize potential ethical missteps before they happen?
It's about being aware of the things that can bring a leader down. And often a leader can misstep if they make the wrong decisions that are not based on proper values. And that leader then has to be vigilant, just to be aware of the things that can tempt them to go down a path that there might be no coming back from. So being vigilant, reflecting multiple times on your decision. Why am I making this decision? Am I doing this because of what I think I'll benefit from? Or am I doing this because it will really benefit the company and all my other colleagues?
Can you share an experience where maintaining integrity was especially challenging?
Yeah, so often because of my type of responsibility, it comes down to approving certain things or certain expenses. And I had an experience recently where I had to approve something. And I was like, hang on, this doesn't align with my values and expectations. And it's tough to then push back and say, no, I'm not approving this because it's not aligned with our corporate governance standards. And that's where integrity is difficult because integrity often requires pushing back. The Bible always talks about a narrow path and a wide path, and the narrow path being the one that leads to heaven, the wide path to hell. So often, if you take the wide path, it looks like the easy path, and that's where practicing non-integrity is often easy because you're not having to say no. When you practice integrity and you're in a narrow path, it's saying no. You could be perceived as being difficult or not understanding, and that's where integrity is a lot more difficult. And for me, it was really about, if I approve this thing that I'm being asked to approve, is it true to my values?
That's so true. I think that's why some people sometimes stumble when it comes to integrity, because the right way is not always the easy way. And what role does self-reflection play in guarding against ethical failures?
With self-reflection, you'll be able to identify what your personal bias is. All of us have got personal biases, and the reason why we've got biases is that biases help us shortcut decisions. So if you are walking down a dark alley and you see someone dressed a particular way, looking dodgy as far as your brain believes, that's part of your protective mechanisms that keep you safe. The challenge, though, when you're a leader is that those biases could lead you to make a decision which is not ethical. You could end up discriminating against a particular type of people, for example. Yeah, so it's important to identify those personal biases, reflect on why you are seeing things a particular way, and also be aware of weaknesses where sometimes you don't always see something clearly until you speak to someone else to help you interpret what you are seeing.
How do you hold yourself accountable to your values as a leader?
One thing that I do is to get feedback from colleagues. And if I realize that I'm doing something where there seems to be quite a bit of pushback, it's getting feedback to say, what are you seeing in this? What are you seeing in my actions? Are you seeing a risk that we might be doing something that does not have integrity? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. So it's really being accountable and allowing yourself to be accountable, because accountability starts with you giving permission to other people to speak into your life. If you're a closed shop and you don't allow that reflection from your peers, you could end up believing something that is totally incorrect, and you end up falling, not intentionally, but purely because of closing your perspective to what's outside.
And what steps can leaders take to ensure their teams also prioritize ethical behavior?
A leader has to guide the expectations. We normally, in the companies that I work with, devise a code of ethics, because ethics can vary between companies. And it's not fair to assume that an employee from another organization will see ethics the same way that you do. So you need to document what your expectations are, train people, coach people as they come through situations that test their ethical perspective. And also, you then have to lead by example, because you can't just be a leader that is a do as I say leader. You need to be a leader that is do as I do.
How do you respond to temptations or pressures that could lead to compromising values?
The biggest response is to have your values right up in front of you. What do you stand for?
That's powerful. That's very powerful.
Yes, yeah, because that's always your litmus test. Who am I? What do I stand for? And is this part of who I am?
And what advice would you give to someone who feels pressured to act against their integrity?
To remember that they are on the narrow path that leads to success, and just to be careful that the short-term gains that they will make from succumbing to pressure might not be worth it compared to the long-term losses that they are going to face.
And what should leaders do if they failed and had a great fall, like Humpty Dumpty?
Well, the Humpty Dumpty story said Humpty Dumpty couldn't be put back together again. But fortunately, that's not always true for us humans. In many ways, we can be stitched together, and sometimes we can be even better than who we were before the fall, just because of the maturity and realization that comes from having fallen. So I'd say to those leaders, they need to acknowledge what happened, learn, and get up, get stitched back together, and go out with the new abilities that they've unlocked from recovering from their great fall.
Thank you for a great discussion today, Dr. Mandla, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Amanda Witt, and I am the Senior Editor at Luca, the faith and inspiration imprint of Penguin Random House South Africa.
And I am Mandla Moyo, the author of an inspirational book called Conquer Your Mountains, as well as a science fiction book called The Fallen Angel.